Hi guys, and welcome to the Together Again podcast. It's actually been nearly 3 months since the episode aired, but we've rewatched it right now for this podcast, and my god, we've been sitting here silently for the past 3 minutes, and I wonder if that for you guys, that's for the same reason it was that I've been sitting here silently, which is
emotional breakdown.
Yeah, just needed to process that emotionally because what an episode that is on first rewatch and rewatch and
it's just too good. like,
yeah.
I feel like this one's a hard one to like talk about. Like I don't know where to start.
Okay, so since let's start with how we feel. How did you feel first watching this episode, and how do you feel now? Because when I first watched this episode, I was bewildered. Like I was convinced. Like I was, as soon as they showed Old Man Finn, I was in shock for the entire thing. Like absolutely in shock. I didn't know what to feel. I went into the Spaghetti Discord chat after the episode aired and stayed in that voice chat for about 14 hours as everyone came in and reacted. Yep, for 14 hours as everyone came in and reacted, and we talked about the episode all day. And then I woke up at 2 a.m. that night, bawling my eyes out, because I felt so strongly for Finn and for the loss and pain he felt when his brother died, and the feeling of inadequacy and despair that Jake didn't wait for him. Oh my god, like, I'm moving my phone. It really impacted me at that moment, how horrible Finn must have felt. And I couldn't stop crying for like 4 hours. I couldn't get back to sleep. I was hit all at once by the episode, and I was in a state for the next few days. So that's the initial impact Together Again had on me. And it's been 2 months since then, so I've been able to process it since then, and I have a lot more thoughts now. But that's what I felt first watching. So, what about you?
I think the first night, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't I call you?
Yeah, we had.
What time was it?
Oh boy, we had a conversation. Like I don't remember what time it was, but I think it was very late for me.
I remember I decided not to watch it at 3 a.m., which is when it comes out. Where I live, and because I realized like every other special I had a lot of feelings and I had no one to really share them with, because it's like you finish at 4 in the morning and it's like, okay, time to sleep, I guess. So I was glad I did that because I really knew I needed the emotional support, and I watched it when I woke up. I remember it took me an entire hour. I had the episode up and the play button up, but I just like couldn't do it because this is like, you know, something I've always wanted, like something like this, like just an episode about love and between those two, and just focus on their relationship and, you know, what happened next. I kind of made peace with the fact that I would never get that, and then it happened actually pretty quickly after the finale. It's just like, literally I'm Finn, where I'm just like, I just had my Donkin epiphany. I was so happy. I was like, you know what, I'm at peace with all of this, and suddenly it's like, wait a minute, there's more. But I remember I called you right after I finished, and I was just like bawling my eyes out for like, I felt like hours. I don't know how long it was, but
I think immediately before you, I think when I woke up and I watched it, I messaged you immediately saying, Chan, make sure that somebody is around to talk to when you watch this. And you said, and you watched it and you said, can I call you? And we were in the voice chat for quite a while, just gushing about it and processing it, because it was so much. It was really heavy for us. So especially for you, with how much you cherish Finn and Jake in their relationship. So that is a very memorable moment for me, and I love that the special had such an impact. It couldn't do these things.
And I was very, very grateful for you at that time, because I really needed someone. But yeah, like you said, I cherish them like with all my heart, and seeing them handle with such respect and, you know, just, God, so hard to talk about. But, seeing them hand with such respect and such care, I remember two things, which are very, very funny to talk about in hindsight. Two things I said. One thing was when they revealed Finn at the end of Obsidian with the tattoo, I said, I don't think that Together Again is going to be about Jake's death, was one of the things I said.
That's what I thought too, honestly.
It wasn't.
I know, but I didn't think they were going to talk about his death at all. I was like, I think that Finn, as an adult with a tattoo, is a nod to just, Jake did end up, passing away at some point, and Finn made peace with it. He got the tattoo and immortalized him. And I said, you know what, as a fan, like, if they don't ever talk about that, I think that's such a beautiful message that I don't really think I need anymore. Obviously, because I was terrified of seeing any more, but that was one of the things I said. I was not correct. Another thing I said that I remember before the episode was they were doing, I think it was an Obsidian AMA on Reddit. Adam was doing it. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was either BMO or... No, it was a BMO AMA, actually. Because I remember that. We were all asking about, like, Mo and all that. But I said... I was trying to ask... I'm like, I know it's probably... I know you probably can't talk about it, but, like... Is Together Again gonna treat Finn and Jake, like, with respect in their relationship? And is it gonna be about, like, their emotion? Because I was so afraid... I was like, they better have a really good reason that they separated. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, there was part of me that was like, I was imagining the episode, and it was like, Finn accidentally knocked over Jake's sandwich, and then they didn't talk to each other for 30 years or something. You know what I mean? But
I remember that.
I was wrong, and death is, I think, an acceptable reason for them. But, seeing it, even back then when I was bawling my eyes out with you, like, I think the reason I was bawling my eyes out so much was because it was so beautiful and it was so important to me, and I was just so grateful that it happened. And so they weren't sad. Oh, like, I was so scared they were going to be sad. That was terrible tears, but no, they were genuine, and I was just so grateful, and I couldn't, and I still can't begin to put into words how much it all meant to me that it happened and how grateful I am that it happened. But I'll let the others talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so for me, when I first watched it, unlike for BMO and Obsidian, which I didn't stay up until 3 a.m. to watch, but I did, like, the next morning, I was like, okay, this is out. I gotta, like, first thing, basically, like, while eating breakfast, I gotta see these soon. I didn't do that with Together Again because my friend Trixie Pasta wanted to watch it with me because they're an AT fan too, and was like, hey, new important special. Yeah, we should watch it together. But then I had to wait for them to, like, they were working that day, and so I had to wait till, like, the end of the day when they got home. And that did result in me seeing some spoilers on the internet before I saw the episode, but I just, like, tried not to think about it. Like, one of the things I saw before the episode was the Finn and Jake are dead title card, and I was like, maybe that doesn't mean exactly what I think it does. I'm just not going to think about it.
No.
So on, first watch, I did enjoy it, of course. But I don't know, I also felt weirdly, like, bad about it. Like, I had this sort of disappointment, like, which now that I think about it might have been just because I was, it was a very emotionally sad thing, and I was just, like, not feeling it very much. I was, like, ignoring it, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's reaching too far. But, I don't know, because this is just... well, first of all, there was disappointment about this not being the actual finale because of the city is coming after. We thought it was coming before. And that was a whole thing, like, in, what was it, early May, right? Or...
yeah.
They were like, hey, it's coming this month. And everyone was like, wait a second.
You wanted it last. We wanted the gay peppermint first, remember? We really wanted to...
And, like, not only that, but it was so final. Like, it was all about death. And, like, the Finn and Jake's last moments at the end there. I think part of it might have also been, I wanted it to be really focused on Finn and Jake, it being the last thing in the series about them, as far as we know. And a lot of it was so much about Death World lore. It was I don't know. It was weird. It had this weird feeling about it. But I've warmed up to it a lot. I'm not saying this stuff is I like it a lot right now, having just watched it now with you guys.
Yeah. Well, here's Nick's lighthearted experience.
Yeah.
So the day before the episode came out, I had my wisdom teeth out, which was fun. And then the next day I had to be taking painkillers and stuff, so that all made me very dizzy. And I also had to wait the entire day. I got to watch it at 5 or 6 p.m. because I had to wait for my brother to be not busy. So I did, because when Obsidian came out, I had to wait too. But I did black out of social media except for YouTube. And YouTube gave me a recommended video of Finn's reveal in Obsidian before I got to watch the episode. So that pissed me off beyond belief. So for that entire day when Together Again came out, I didn't use the internet at all and was very bored and dizzy from painkillers. So it was awesome. But then I got to watch it and I was just so impressed. I feel like I didn't... I don't remember tearing up or crying. It's so much of a thing where when you rewatch it or when you think about it, it really hits. But when I first watched it, I was so impressed because, like Tulip was sort of saying, and Chan too, from the Jake tattoo in Obsidian, I was like, oh, okay, that might mean Jake's dead. This is just a cute cameo. This is what happened to Finn when he grew up. And I thought this episode was going to have nothing to do with that at all. But then the trailer came out, and it really did seem like, there was a lot of sort of vague things in the trailer. They did a fantastic job in the marketing, not fully revealing the twist here. But
yeah.
They made the marketing kind of seem like it was a flashback episode, but there was tiny things you could notice where it was oh, he's working with Jake in a weird way though. Maybe he's trying to save Jake from dying. And, I'm a YouTuber, so I had to make a theory video and look into all that stuff. So I would have honestly rather have not have, but it was impossible to avoid people talking about that trailer because it was such a big deal. And so I just went in and talked about it too. But so I had that expectation that it was going to be about death and stuff. But then the way that the episode did it just impressed me so much. It impressed me beyond the ability to be emotional about it, because I was just look at these backgrounds, listen to this music, look at the way they revealed that Jake was dead, the way Finn was old. It just impressed me so much that I didn't get emotional because my jaw was just on the floor because I was I can't believe this is the direction they took for the finale of this.
I think it was remember when we were doing the Together Again predictions video? About 5 minutes. I think it was about 5 minutes before we started recording. It was less than 2 hours before we started recording the video that they dropped the Together Again promotional art on King of Vu with Jake. Do you remember that? And we were I think it was at that point that we realised, oh God, this is definitely going to deal with Jake's death in some way, most likely, in the 50th Dead World in Nirvana, by the looks of it. But none of us, nobody on this planet expected it to deal with Finn's death. Nobody expected it to deal with reincarnation.
Because, everyone was predicting it was going to be about Jake's death. I was, pretty sure of it because of the tattoo in Obsidian and because of all the foreshadowing from the show, which there was a lot of. It's if this is going to be the last thing, maybe it's going to end with Jake dying or something like that. But, what a gut punch at the very beginning to have it be everyone's dead. They're both dead.
Something that only Adventure Time would ever do. What an incredible concept to be I imagine that writers are meeting what if literally every single character that people know from this 10-year franchise is just dead. And you think that would be completely ridiculous and never work, but just the entire tone of it and just the inevitability of all of it, they're dead. That's just what it is.
The whole time nobody's sad about being dead. The only sadness is the fact that Finn and Jake were separated. But it's the fact of death isn't the emotional thing in this episode. And
it's just
yeah.
I was
such
thinking,
an Adventure Time thing.
Yeah, and I was thinking on this rewatch, like kind of towards the beginning of the episode when like the skeletons were showing up in the dead world. I was thinking like they could have put this episode into the original show as just like some random flash forward episode, and it totally would have worked that way too. Like maybe take out the emotion a bit, but like nothing about this is unexpected, or nothing about this is super expected being the final episode, you know? Like this seeing the characters dead could have worked anywhere in the show given how bizarre the show is.
I think that's an important thing to note, is that the creators knew that too. This is the only one where they put the original title sequence on, because the other two specials were wonderful and I loved them, and they felt like these nice little bonus things, but this one really felt connected to the original show, like none of the other ones did. Like,
do you remember when they released that first trailer? I mean, I know we were just talking about this, but the first trailer for Together Again, the one that made us go, well, what do you mean Together Again is next?
Yeah.
And Ice King, this is your chance for redemption. And I think so many of us were like, they're not going to butcher the characters into like bastardized versions of themselves, or they like we thought they might do, because of The Ever Distant Land's been a little bit cheesy. And Sturt and I in particular were like, yeah, this trailer wasn't. This trailer has made me concerned about the past Finn and Jake. Like Finn saying, "Oh, we'll stop this with more violence," and then the night before Together Again dropped, I read a review of it, which is
what's wrong with you?
I read a review. I think it was by the AV Club. I don't know who it was. I read a review by some website that basically implied that this scene was supposed to be Adventure Time by people who haven't seen Adventure Time and maybe don't like Adventure Time, and that Finn is in a dream and he needs to wake up to a realization. And I was like, oh, that is so much better than what I thought it was. And when I started the special, I had that in mind. Of course, I didn't realise that Finn was going to be dead. That was absolutely horrific. But and we can talk more about that dream shortly. But yeah, once I had that knowledge, I was a lot more optimistic going into the special, rather than the fear that it would be not as bad as the others, because I loved the others, but like it wouldn't be Adventure Time.
Yeah. But you're talking about how they put out like the clip of that scene though, right? I didn't watch that. I did not watch that.
I'm just picturing like the one person on the earth that turned on the special, said, you know what, I don't love this show, but I'm going to give it a try, and they shut it off before that flashback ended. They're like, this show's so stupid. It's the same as it was in season 1. It's so boring. Just shut it off. I remember picking up on so many things on that first flashback, because, you know, the first night I watched it, like I said, I was pretty much having a panic attack the entire time. And I was watching the flash, and I knew it was like, I knew something wasn't right, which isn't, you know, people.
Of course.
And Jake would talk about, like, you know, I'm not.
Everyone's alive.
Yeah, everyone's alive, and like, he's like, I can't, and he's like, you saved everyone, and then Finn starts crying, and I'm just like, oh, no. Like, there's so many little things, like, you know, the ice cream flavors, like the 50 flavors in the 50th Dead World, and like...
Yeah, that was when I didn't get it, you know, until afterwards. Like, oh yeah.
There's like, I don't remember the specific lines, but like right away, he's like, I'm trying to piece together lore before they show us the lore just based on his ice cream talk, and I'm like, I don't like where this is going. Like, I do like where it's going, but I'm like, oh no. And neither does that motorcycle hates it too.
Yeah.
But I hate that motorcycle.
I think from the sorry, from like the snow golems that were gumballed, and what the other guy,
and the nemesis guy.
Peacemaker.
It became immediately obvious, didn't it?
Yeah, from that I was like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. I remember my brother looked at me. He was like, "Isn't that like the uncle guy?" And I was like, I know what's up. I know what's up. And just when I did my sort of like reaction / review of this episode by myself, that was like a 30-minute video or longer, and like a majority of it was me just talking about that scene, because I think the way that scene is done is like so freaking cool. Like, it's so incredibly, perfectly ominous. All the dialogue, all like the little pauses, the music, which we talked about while we were watching it, like it's so good. It's so good.
It really, like, the whole thing is like a visual representation of just denial, and Finn just, you know, and it's probably how he felt too, like, you know, when he was alive with Jake, and just being like, no, like, next adventure, here's another adventure, next one, and Jake's like, I'm getting tired, I can't keep, and he's like, no, like, we're a team, we're doing this, and just not letting himself consider that Jake would be gone one day, you know, because that's something that's so hard to think about.
I also liked, you know, when I saw those snow people, I was like, oh, something's up here. This is probably a dream. But the moment I was like, okay, this is definitely a dream, is when, after they save the princesses, Turtle Princess is like, I just remembered, worms are attacking the library. Because that's a, like, realistic thing that happens in dreams. You just move on to the next thing.
I just didn't think the writers would do a flashback but have Jeremy's voice be the same. Like, that just doesn't seem like something they do unless they had, like, a funny explanation for it. But, like, right away I was like, there's no way this is real.
That dream was like a such horror vibes when Jake started melting, and like, what's it called, psychological horror, when Jake started melting, like, Jake's gentle voice, it's okay, and Finn's like, not again, and rip Jake, and that's where it gets absolutely terrifying. Like, the sky is red, there's skeletons on the top of the treehouse, and Finn flashes to old man Finn.
Also, the skeletons were characters. Like, it was like Mr. Pig and Root Beer Guy and a bunch of people.
Is Root Beer Guy dead again? Is Root Beer
Guy dead again? By the time Finn is an old man, probably. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but like, we know candy people, and also he's a zombie. But Lemon Grab is dead. His son lasts 1,000 years, and he's dead. Did he die in a horse riding accident?
I don't know though, because the skeletons from Finn's dream, that was just a dream. Like, that doesn't really necessarily mean anything.
I have to mention, like, completely separate from the episodes, like, you know, everything that happened. Like, Jeremy's performance was incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, I mean, he's a great voice actor, and I loved him as Finn, but I don't know if I've ever been that floored with the performance by him, ever. Like, like, the not again, and in the dream, and to jump ahead a little bit, when he hugged Jake, when he saw him for the first time, and he said, "You found me," it was such, oh my god, it was so real. Yeah. I could not believe it. It was insane. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to mention this somewhere, because I remember on his Instagram, when this episode came out, he made a post about it, but he said, like, hey guys, I know you follow me because Julie and the Phantoms, but I actually voice Finn the Human too. And I was like, we're so old. Oh, nobody knows he's Finn the Human.
How does nobody know Jeremy Shadder is Finn? What the heck?
Just everything. I don't want to, like, scan the entire episode, but just every single line, like at the end when he thanks him and they're hugging, and then even when he does the little laugh when Jake said he's going to stay with him, he does a little snort, and just, it's all so genuine. It's and I really, really, really just...
Voice acting wise, Distant Lands, like we highly praised Hinden and Olivia in the previous episode, and even Michaela Dietz for their voice roles. And in this episode, you have Jeremy Shadder at his best, as well as John DiMaggio just being a good Jake, you know, like. So it's just, they've really put their heart into it, because they know this is their return to Adventure Time, which is probably one of the most special things they worked on. So, my gosh, and
you telling me Jeremy wouldn't have a performance like this if they brought back the Incredible Crew?
Oh god!
I don't think he'd get the chance.
Yeah.
They could do like a Finn spinoff called like Doing Errands with My Dead Mom.
Oh god!
Like this rewatch in particular, I was getting a big feeling of like. Also, I wish we had just gotten to see just a little bit more of like Finn's life, and I was imagining like at the beginning, I was imagining, you know, what if there was another episode that had like this exact opening, and it's still Finn's dream, but then he wakes up and he's like alive, and he's just, you know, an adult at some point in his life, and he's just like sad about Jake and has to deal with it.
You know what? I don't know about anyone else, but for the entire episode, I was half expecting him to reveal that Finn was actually alive and that he was just imagining being a dead old man because he really wanted to see Jake that much. And I even thought, like, for a moment that was what happened at the end. I thought, wait, is Finn, like, waking up in the real world? Because he actually isn't an old man. Yeah, like, he actually isn't an old man, and he just thought he was, but he actually did go to the dead worlds to see Jake. But no, it was much better than that. He was reincarnating. But
yeah, I didn't have that expectation at all. I thought he would have been dead. And honestly, I think, like, against what Tulip said, I'm, like, so content with this just being it. And we spectate about whatever else happened. I really think, too, like, an episode about Finn being alive and, like, I'm sure this probably isn't directly what you meant, Tulip, but, like, an episode with Finn alive and, like, it's all metaphorical about him missing Jake, like, I feel like that'd be really sappy compared to how this episode is. Like, that would be a different type of emotional thing than this episode is.
Well, no, yes, of course.
Yeah.
I don't want that episode instead of this episode. I just want more, you know?
You just want it to be there, I guess.
And it would be Adventure Time, so it would also be funny, and it would also be whatever else it could possibly be, you know?
Yeah.
I do agree with Nick. I agree with you, Tulip, to an extent, because, like, selfishly, I'm like, oh my god, more things, and, you know, more Adventure Time, more Finn, but...
Because I really liked the little glimpse of Finn that we got in Obsidian, and it was like, it's like, but that's all we get, and it's like, I want to know more. What's Bronwyn doing there? What's his life like? Is he living in the van, or what's up?
I have such, you know, torn feelings on that kind of thing, because, like, giving us enough pieces to speculate is such an important thing, I think. Like, I think just giving you all the answers is not the right call, as much as I want, you know, to see it all. There's obviously so much potential there, and so many years we could see, and so many amazing things, but, you know, I think they did a really good job showing us just enough that we could be satisfied but not have all the answers and be able to fill in our own ideas.
Yeah.
On the topic of Finn being sad and missing Jake, it's a really complicated thing for me, because I did see some people, like, I really hate the idea that Finn just lived the rest of his life sad.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it is...
That.
It's sad to think about, but I don't think it's as simple as Finn living, like, Jake didn't die and he just lived his life a sad version of himself. I guess because I understand grief from personal experience, but, you know, it's not all sadness. Like, he missed him forever, like, to the day he died, obviously, but that doesn't mean he can't be happy, and he can't, you know, have Jake live on through him. I think it's a very, very depressing thought to believe that the second Jake died, Finn just became, like, a shell of himself. I mean, we could tell he wasn't.
Yeah.
I think there's proof of that, like, even in this episode.
In the first scene.
We saw enough of Finn being a shell of himself in other episodes.
Yeah.
As
a teen.
This is something that was a very hot topic for discussion when the episode aired, and it was something, like, if we recall Obsidian, I think we felt very strongly, I felt very strongly happy for Finn and how he was able to live, like, be so content and comfortable with himself in the Obsidian time period. Even though Jake wasn't there, he was still with Jake's family, enjoying life. He was dancing alone, and he was loving himself, and I found such strength in that. Like, it fits so well with that special as well, which is, well, you know, PB and Marcy coming to terms and forgetting themselves, and then you have Finn, who's already done that, and it was such a source of strength, that episode for me and for so many people. And then when this one aired, it kind of pressed the idea that Finn felt like he'd lost so much when Jake died, which I had big arguments with Stuart about this just before the episode aired. I said, I don't want Finn to be sad forever when Jake dies, and Stuart said, well, I want Finn to be messed up about it, at least, because that's what happens when you lose a brother. It's not realistic for him to just brush it off. But people immediately jumped to having like the worst conclusion, which is, oh, Finn wasn't really living his life when Jake died, and there were some really popular posts on Twitter about that, and that's a large part of why I was crying at 4 a.m. The next morning. But the people on Spaghetti, Xavier, another big fan of Finn, he hates that interpretation. He absolutely loves it, and he agrees that Old Man Finn seems really happy.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Before he realized he was dead, he was, like, perfectly content to just, like, be in a random dungeon and try and help people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the thing about grief. It's not a straight line, you know? Because just because you're being happy doesn't mean you're not sad, and vice versa.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I think, you know, when Jake died, it did hit him really hard, and maybe he was messed up for a while after that, but then he had, like, a whole life. And, you know, maybe it was stronger in this episode because, you know, he was... Well, for one thing, I think a lot of it was him, you know, trying to reunite with Jake, like, not out of, like, a grief. That's, you know, that's the thing he's looking forward to, that he's trying to get, is to finally see Jake again. And then also, when it is grief, it's like, yeah, well, that's because, you know, the wound is new again. Like, he can't see him, and that's...
Yeah, he can't.
Like, he
see
would have
him
gotten
the
over
one
it, but
time,
now he's back. You know.
Yeah, the one time he expected to be able to see him, he can't find him.
Absolutely, it does not mean that he didn't have like a full life and happy moments and all that.
And if there was one thing I could ask from this special, it would have been to get at least one more line about Finn, like, you know, enjoying his life as an adventurer, rather than, you know, leaving a lot of people convinced that he didn't. Like, at least we could have thrown that at them, but we haven't really got much to go by at the moment.
Yeah. They mentioned that the final scene had more dialogue in it originally, and I really, really wish I knew what the dialogue was. Because something I still, I guess, not struggle with, but am kind of wondering about is the epiphany, in quotations, that he felt like he had at the end. Because the implication, I think, is, you know, he admits to Jake, really the entire time I was just waiting till I'd see you again. And then after he says that, he says, like, I think I'm ready to go back. And I think the implication is supposed to be that he wants to live life again, but peacefully. And I guess his epiphany was that, you know, he'll eventually see Jake again, no matter what, so he wants to try again and live life without feeling maybe guilty for wasting it or something.
That's
what do you think?
That's the interpretation that people had on Twitter, and whilst the episode does quite lean into that, it might also be more straightforward. Like, Finn is obsessed with reuniting with Jake and reincarnating specifically with Jake, but now he's accepted he can enjoy life without having to even know who Jake is. He can see Jake eventually. He doesn't have to rush with him right now. And it was important that Jake have his own epiphany and show Finn that he cares about him rather than just accepting their separation.
Yeah, cause when I watched the episode, like, I got that interpretation that he was content and he just, like, you know, he wasn't sitting down all day hoping to die to see Jake again. He just knew in the back of his mind, like, when I'm dead, I get to see Jake, and that'll be awesome. But I can see, especially with the way you guys are explaining it too, like, I can see how there's a lot of people that interpret it that Finn, like, became emo for his whole life. And I think really it's just because I talked about this when the episode came out in our chat, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but we watch a lot of media and stuff that does paint that kind of picture of, like, if somebody important to you dies, like, you think about that every day, and you have a big character arc where you gotta cry and you gotta meet somebody else and stuff like that, like in anime or live action shows and stuff, you know, because kids cartoons, nobody ever dies. But so, like, I feel like people would latch on to that kind of interpretation because that's just what they see much more often, and probably what they, you know, enjoy seeing, because they're, to an extent, it's like masochistic, but, like, we love seeing really miserable stories like that sometimes, but there's, you know, that's not how real life is, and that's not what Adventure Time ever really did or wants to do with this storyline. So you know, people can interpret it whatever way they want, but I think the way they're interpreting it is just based on so many other things that they've seen, not really what the creators were trying to get across.
No, I really do agree with you, and that's why I loved the portrayal of grief they had here. Just because it's like you said, it's not just about, like, it's not a straight line. You don't just, like, get sad, have an epiphany, and then live on in happiness. It's one day you're sad and you can't get out of bed. Another day you're thinking about them and they give you the strength to get out of bed. It's not like a straight line, and you're allowed to grieve and be sad and also be happy and move on. They're not mutually exclusive, and I think that's a really important thing that they showed with that.
And like
that's why it makes me frustrated when people interpret it the other way, you know?
And like any other story that does, you know, kind of illustrate it in that straight line kind of way, nothing wrong with that. That's just kind of the way that those stories are being laid out. And Adventure Time is such a unique thing. It's always doing things totally different from other stuff, and it wanted to handle grief in the way that it did here. So it's not like there's anything lesser about telling it different ways. This is just the way this episode did it.
I know it's very unlikely, but there is a chance that because I know Wizard City was the last one to be produced, as well as being the one to unfortunately air last, but it's also the last one that was produced, so technically it's in the right order. There is a chance they will show Finn and Jake, or Finn recovering from Jake's death.
Dude, don't hit me with this. I didn't even think about that for some reason. You know what's funny? Just to go off of that for 2 seconds, everyone seems to be really upset that Wizard City is last, but I'm chilling. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited because no matter what, I had this dread in my soul about Together Again, because I knew how important the episode was and important for it to be good for me. And now that it's aired and I've had time to process it, I'm like, okay, now I feel peaceful and content. And now I get this little bonus episode that has so much potential to just surprise me pleasantly. Like, I can view it as a separate thing, like a little bonus, and I'm really happy about that.
We can process the really shocking, like, the really shocking Finn and Jake episode, and just have a weaning off with what we assume to be a more light-hearted, almost probably BMO-esque episode.
Yeah, I agree, actually. Because all that stuff I was feeling about, the first time I watched the episode, I might still have felt that way if it was actually the last episode, and then it'd be like, well, now I have this melancholy in my heart forever because there'll never be another episode.
Yeah, the Minecraft episode that the crew thought was going to air after the finale.
Yeah.
I'm approaching it the same way because I absolutely love the Minecraft episode. It's literally probably my favourite episode in the final season. It's very dear to my heart. Just how pleasant and nice it is. And to me, I'm approaching Wizard City the same way. The characters might be dead in the future, but we'll always be back then when they were alive and all that. Like, we even see we can talk about that. We even see Peppermint Butler in this episode, and we know that the future of Wizard City in a way, but we can see the past when they're closer to come along with me, and it's like the time doesn't exist. All of these things are happening almost at the same time, despite their massive time gaps. So that's how I see it.
Also, another thing that like really hit me the first time through was that the pacing of the episode is actually pretty good. Like everything it also feels kind of fast. I guess I was noticing that. I was like, everything they're doing, they do it, and then they get out and do something else because they had to fit a lot into this episode. But the first time through it, I was like not paying attention to the progress bar. And I was just like, wait, is this going to be the end? Like, is this going to be the last thing? Are they going to end it here? What are they going to do? I was like worried about that the whole time.
I thought the pacing was immaculate. I loved, like, the amount they fit. It just, I never felt like, oh no, too fast. Like, the only time I felt that actually was on my first watch when I accidentally shifted in bed and my mouse moved and I realized there was only 6 minutes left. I was like, wait a minute, how? But it was. I finished, I think, BMO and Obsidian, and I initially was like, I don't know about that pacing. I eventually came around to the pacing, especially in Obsidian, but like this one, I really, really liked it. I thought it was great.
And that's an interesting achievement too, because this is like, in terms of location variety and character appearances and stuff. Like, this is the most complicated special compared to
Right?
the other two.
I know.
But they were so masterful with it.
I mean, the thing I think I'm feeling right now is that all the scenes were so good, I wanted to spend more time in them, you know?
Yeah. Like, I think, and now that I'm, like, content with how, like, this is how the episode is, like, watching it through is good, but, I think the one thing that I think is a little weird, it could have used more time, or maybe shouldn't have even been included, was, their parents showing up again. Because I feel like
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
that warrants more of an emotional thing, but Finn just kind of hugs them and they give him stuff and then he leaves, and then it's used for Tiffany's thing, and it just doesn't seem that necessary. But like, it's the kind of thing where it's like when you're writing an episode like this, you're like, well, they said it in the recent Comic-Con thing, they're like, we had to have them show up, and it's like, yeah, you had to have them show up, but like, they could have done a little more with it, I think.
Yeah,
But
and like when I say, you know, I wanted, you know, scenes to have more time, that is the one I'm thinking about. Like, especially because Jake didn't even like get to see them at all before they went off and reincarnated again.
I think I loved their part in the episode. I loved seeing them, and I think they were really funny, and it worked really well for the plot. But I do agree that the initial moment with Finn seeing them again, I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're done with that emotional... Because, you know, when he saw Jake again, it was absolutely beautiful, like this spinning, flying, amazing hug, and it was great. But then it's like, these are his parents, you know, you'd expect something kind of similar, like a similar, like, oh my god, it's them.
yeah.
So I agree, but I also, you know, I was not that mad about
I think
it.
they did actually see him for a second, like at the end, but you know, it wasn't much. And also, I do really like the stuff they did with the, like, how Tiffany became found family at the end. That was funny.
Yeah.
Hat Jake, woman Jake,
Yes.
and worst
By the way,
Jake.
who could have possibly predicted that this was going to be a Tiffany episode?
Yeah, he's
Exactly.
actually the protagonist. Like Tiffany is so good in this episode. It's absolutely
He was
unreal.
amazing. He was so funny.
This,
you know what's kind of
this
funny?
episode is so funny. That's something we gotta just save for a whole
Yeah.
other segment here. Like,
Oh, we
this
will
yeah.
talk
episode's
about
hilarious.
that. We will talk about that.
I have to say, Nick, like I've seen that complaint a lot, and while I can understand people being like, "Oh, Joshua and Margaret didn't get enough time," at the same time, I was with Finn. Like I felt I could click with him, and he processed his mum and dad's death like a long time ago, and seeing Joshua and Margaret is like, oh, that's awesome. I can see mom and dad again, but compare that to Jake. And I feel like Finn would be distracted by Jake, even if Joshua and Margaret were able to put him out of that hyper focus for like 5 minutes. And I do enjoy Joshua and Margaret as comic relief, so I do understand why they felt it was probably not only in character for that moment to be a little bit casual, but also necessary. And I did find it fun. I actually found it nice to see Joshua and Margaret and have that nice moment with them, even and for them to be a part of the episode, even if there wasn't a massive emotional moment. I wasn't looking for one, so
I
I
can
definitely
understand
agree
that.
with that. Like, I wasn't upset about that, and I couldn't really say why, but I think that's a good point, for sure.
I wasn't upset about that while watching it. It was just the thing afterwards, like, wait, did they really only spend that short of time with them? It was like that.
yeah, but if it fits, then it works. You know, it doesn't have to be emotional.
I think it's kind of like you putting it that way helps a lot. I think, but I still think just like as a viewer, I feel like I would want those two characters to even just like I don't know, just like have their reveal be different. Like Joshua said something off screen and then it panned to them and there was a little music cue. Like that's all there was. I feel like they could have done a little more build up to them showing up. Just like something a little bit more that could have made like as a viewer like could have made it more of a surprise that they showed up. I think that might be more what I'm looking for. Now I just had this thought too. What if when New Death blew up the dead world that they were in, what if they just weren't in the rest of the special and they aged?
I thought that no seriously, because when Tiffany came in and there was this massive spirit bomb, epic effects, by the way. Like this entire special is visually so much better than the ones that came before. Yeah, it's just everything that was wrong with Obsidian together again, like actually does well and does so well. It's unbelievable. But like the slang as well. The slang is back in full force. We complained about the lack of slang. We complained about it not really feeling like 80 at some points. This is definitely an 80 episode. But I thought Joshua and Margaret had died, and I was like, how am I supposed to watch the rest of the special knowing that Joshua and Margaret were just evaporated from existence? What am I supposed to do with myself? So I was glad when they showed up later and they're fine.
I think the scene directly after that was one of the most powerful moments in like the entire show's history for me, when Finn was just alone and he let himself just become old and a skeleton again, and I don't know, he said like, what's the point, or he just gave up, and it was such a powerful moment, especially Jake coming out and their the hug and the camera panning around them and the "you found me." I was like, this is one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool too how like the idea of being able to change your form, to like any version of yourself when you're alive in the dead world is like I like how they used that to get like cartoonier than they usually would, or if they did it in like the alive world, it might feel a little weird. But like
when Tiffany showed up and Finn had 4 expressions at once.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to bring...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was waiting for a point where it would make sense to bring this up, but I think that the idea that they can change forms is awesome because they do some awesome stuff with it, especially at the fight at the end. But I weirdly wish that Finn was an old man the whole time. I think that would have been such a cool subversion. That like we of course we want to hear Jeremy, we want to see the Finn that we know, but I think it would have been such a cool subversion to have him be old for all of the episode or just for more of it.
That would be cool, but like emotionally, I don't think Cartoon Network would have been happy with that, because
I wouldn't have been happy.
For sure.
yeah, because like I'd have liked him personally. I'd have liked him to be in his like young version of Old Man Finn design. I'd have liked him to have been in that design for the entire episode.
Yeah, like from Obsidian, you mean?
No. The young version.
Brown pants.
The young version of Old Man Finn that he turned into when he first saw Mr. Fox.
Okay,
yeah. So I'd have liked him to be in that form for the entire episode. That would have been awesome. But I think Cartoon Network wanted him to look like Finn Mertens, and also they wanted a child entry point, and I guess that is the child entry point. And I don't mind it, because Finn being a teenager, I'd have liked to see an adult Finn, like a reference to adult Finn from Obsidian, but we get Jeremy Sharder, and I love Jeremy Sharder's voice acting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't mind it either. I just think I would be really impressed if they like went full subversive with that and had that be the case.
Yeah,
having it be like the last Finn and Jake episode, like old Finn is Finn, but he feels like a different character, and I'd be like, no, bring me back the Finn I know, please.
Yeah.
and of course there were like so many callbacks and references in this episode. The Shoko moments were great.
Fan service.
Oh yeah.
Talking about the different forms, like, because Finn did it at the beginning, and then it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, Shoko, past life, and then it came back later, and she had more lines, and it was like, this is cool.
It's really funny to me that people were like mind blown. Shoko and the tiger was Jake, and I'm like, is that not obvious?
That was Word of God. That was Word of God many years ago, and The Vault is my favourite episode. So needless to say, I was very delighted at like how heavily it impacted this episode and the previous one. So, I loved it all, every Shoko moment.
I wanted to also go off on a tangent about a stupid lore thing that doesn't matter. But so, like, if you could become any version of your past self in the dead world, do you also, like, have the memories of your past lives, which you wouldn't have had when you were alive?
I think yes, potentially, but you wouldn't care about them. Like Finn might have Shoko's memories, but he might not really care about Shoko's memories because he's been Finn all of this time.
Yeah.
And whoever Finn turns into, they will have most likely Finn's memories. So if he saw Jake in the 50th Dead World, he might be able to recognise Jake. If Jake stayed in the 50th Dead World, Finn might have ended up in there and said, "Oh, hi, Jake," as whatever person he was at the time. But my headcanon is they do inherit the memories, they're just not particularly bothered about their past lives.
Yeah, that's what makes the most sense, definitely.
I have a tangent to talk about. I need your help processing something with your expert opinions.
What?
How do you feel about the fact that like, Jake didn't even think to call Finn. He was like, I thought it'd be weird. And the fact that I think part of me wishes that Jake had a moment, too, where, like, I know him coming out of the portal and, like, dramatically landing and cracking the ground was like, oh, like, Jake finally remembers him. But, like, I was kind of wishing there would be, like, one more emotional moment with that, where he would, like, I do remember Finn. He just, like, comes down and the episode continues. Like, how do you feel about the fact that he...
You know what we should have had? We should have had a, is it in the Light Cloud episode where, like, Finn punches the thing and it flashes, like, all his important life events? We should have had that, but with Finn and Jake together moments, and then Jake hit the ground.
I don't know if you're kidding, but, like, I kind of agree. like the my cat's here. Specifically, like, the like, it was funny, though. That's the thing about it, is it might just be a me problem, but, like, when Finn was like, why wouldn't you dead call me? I would have dead called you all the time. Jake was just like, I thought it'd be weird. And I'm like...
You know, this is the only note, the only note I wrote down during the episode that we were just watching. Finn says, oh, gum, and then he picks up a packet of gum, and it's called Oh Gum. And I was, I better mention that in the podcast. But Jake being all about gum was really funny to me, because he obviously never was in the show, so it's like maybe he got into it off screen or something. I loved that a lot. But yeah, I get what you mean, because it does kind of seem like Jake doesn't care enough, and we don't get proof that he does until towards the end when they're fighting in the portal and all that. But I think the general headcanon is that Jake went into the dead world, thought Finn needs to get over him and move on with his life, and then just kind of daydreamed for a bit and ascended to the 50th dead world.
Well, that's the thing about it, is that he didn't even remember his own name, and you know, Jake's always kind of been like that, like at peace with death, and you know, Finn needs him more than anything. He needs to be with him, but Jake's okay just drifting in this, like, Zen state that he'd been drifting in for, you know, years and years and years and years, and it makes sense that he wouldn't have, like, this glorious epiphany, I guess, but, like, selfishly, you know, their love is mutual, and I wish, like, if Jake had a reason to call Finn in the dead world, or a way to, he totally would. And also, like, even at the end when they were having a conversation and Jake was like, you had all this other stuff to live for, and then he was like, yeah, but I think I was just waiting till I'd see you again, and Jake kind of just gets sad. I'm like, no, Jake, give him a nice speech! Give him a nice speech, please!
Yeah,
and then he floats off, like, I guess... I don't know, like, I always get a little worried, like, maybe the love isn't so mutual. I mean, obviously the love is mutual, but, like, I don't know if it was shown as mutual as I wanted it to be, you know what I mean?
I never, like, dwelled too much on that, like, dead call thing. But, like, you think, like, if they just didn't have that line, you would feel different? Because I feel like that's kind of, like, a thing that's there for, like, lore reasons, because it's established before that the ghosts can talk to the world and stuff. But, like... I feel like that if that wasn't there, I think we wouldn't care much about that idea.
No, exactly, but it was introduced, and Jake was just like, I thought it'd be weird, which is, again, it's a funny Adventure Time line, and I love the idea that Jake, like, thought about calling Finn and just be like, oh, I don't want to bother him, and meanwhile, Finn's having, like, an emotional breakdown in the real world, but I'm like, that is so Jake to do that, so I'm almost not upset, but I'm still upset, you know what I mean?
I feel like that kind of thing's just kind of, I mean, it's weird to say, it's probably wrong to say this because these writers are insane, but, like, that kind of just seems like an oversight type of thing where, like, you know, they didn't really think we would interpret that the way that we're trying to right now, you know?
Yeah,
I don't really think that that's, like, meant to hinder the emotion and stuff.
Even Finn was like, what the heck, dude? He didn't have, like, a massive emotional reaction when Jake said that, but he was, like, obviously irritated at Jake, like, come on, man, what the heck?
He said, I would have dead called you, like, 1,000 times. Well, that's the thing I'm getting at, though, is, like, I wanted to know how you felt about, like, do you think Jake understood how much Finn missed him and needed him, or do you think it was all kind of Finn processing it on his own?
Yeah, like Tipsy was just saying, he did, and he didn't want to interfere with that. He wanted Finn to just get over it on his own time.
He wanted Finn to, because you know how Finn can get so glued and obsessed with things at times. Jake has always wanted Finn to grow up and be his best self and be a good person, and Jake probably felt at the time he died that Finn was ready to do that, and he probably wouldn't want to interfere with Finn's recovery and moving on from him, especially with something like, I'll ghost call you every week. Like to Jake, it would probably feel weird if Finn did that to him.
Right, because I mean, if you're trying to let your brother move on from you, and then you saw how it like when Peppermint Butler got ghost called, he was just like he was like having a seizure on the ground.
Yeah,
I can't imagine it's a very pleasant experience. But if Jake wanted him to move on, meanwhile gave him ghost-induced seizures every other week, I don't know. I guess that makes sense.
I feel like that might just be a Peppermint Butler thing, though. Because ghosts are just around. I feel like you don't specifically have to call a person to be a ghost. I don't know. But do you want to talk about the Peppermint Butler scene?
I was very happy. I was in shock at first that they baited PB. I was like, oh my god, we're going to see PB and together again. How am I going to feel about this as post-Obsidian? And then it wasn't PB, it was Peppermint Butler who's princess. And my immediate reaction was, whoa, why is the Candy Kingdom magic? Why is Peppermint Butler princess? But upon reflection, I think it's a really good ending for her character if she thought Peppermint Butler was competent enough to take over and gave him the throne, because he was always the most loyal and competent of her subjects. So I think it's a better relationship with the Candy people as well, because Peppermint Butler's one of them. He's not their god. He can be on their level, and PB can do what she truly wanted, which is move on with her family. And I don't think she's dead, and Adam Mute confirmed she's not. Thanks to everyone who suggested Thanks to everyone who suggested that she turned into a statue, who made me hate this episode for a day or two, because I was so bothered that was the last thing people would think happened to PB.
Wait, that's what people said?
Yeah, I saw.
They said she turned into a statue because there was a statue.
They thought she was dead. They thought she was dead, or she turned into a statue. And I was like, imagine if they fucking killed off Princess Bubblegum.
No, I feel like it was so obvious that she wasn't dead, because this is the episode that's all about dead people. If she was dead, she would have been in the episode, you know?
Yeah, and Adam said in the recent Comic-Con, I'm going to say something interesting in a second, but he said that there wouldn't be any characters who would obviously outlive Finn, like Princess Bubblegum and Marcelina obviously going to outlive Finn. We also can't really show the Ice King either. And I was like, wait. So Simon Immortality Theory suddenly has accident. I don't think it's confirmation he's immortal. I think he's dead, but they just can't show it.
I don't know. Well, they're leaving it ambiguous on purpose, at least.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was always thinking of. I mean, we don't know how. This obviously can't be 1,000 years in the future, but that's the only future I can see. I can't see the sort of in between that. Because this episode gives us the in between of Candy Kingdom, and that's it. So we don't know what happened with Ice King and stuff. But I don't know. I had this interpretation when we were just rewatching it, because Ice King was at the beginning, and I was like, oh, wait a second, he's not dead. Oh, because the ice thing. But the ice thing isn't him though. But I mean, I don't know. It's just cool. It's just cool shit to think about. It's awesome that they leave it the way they do.
Yeah, talk about characters that might appear in Wizard City. We saw, maybe Phil will have a cameo. Simon really might. I could easily see that being.
Yeah, I hope he does. He was great in Obsidian. I loved Simon in Obsidian. I loved that he wasn't perfectly adjusted, nor was he completely obsessed with finding Betty. He was just coping and trying to move on. I loved that.
And also, definitely Princess Bubblegum. Without a doubt, Princess Bubblegum's going to have a bit in Wizard City. If
PB even appeared in this episode in the Lich Flash, and she was mentioned, and she had a statue. If she's not in Wizard City, they would have to jump through so many hoops to have Peppermint Butler not mention his number one most important relationship in the show for Wizard City, and how he's there and how he becomes princess. They would have to completely do everything they can to avoid mentioning Princess Bubblegum.
It's so funny to me that you guys mention this stuff. I'm like, wow, that makes total sense. But meanwhile, I'm sitting there yeah, you think she's going to be the episode? Maybe. It's when she probably is. I don't know why I'm not thinking about that stuff.
They've surprised us before. So maybe she
I guess I'm the perfect fan to be surprised, because I keep my expectations in check and just be no, it's just going to be Peppermint Butler and those characters they showed. Even Huntress Wizard, I'm I don't know. But probably, maybe, you know.
It's the only one.
I think because they put out that poster that showed like the new characters, I think definitely if any other characters are showing up, it's going to be a cameo. It's not going to be Together Again, where Tiffany was a main character, but he was a surprise main character. Like I think we'll have cameos of stuff in Wizard City, but we won't have anybody being that important. Unless, I mean, maybe some wizard characters might be a little important, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, can I say, you know whose names I don't think we've even mentioned an hour into this podcast is Life, Death, or New Death?
Or the Lich. We have not mentioned the Lich either.
Nope.
I mean, I loved all three of them. I thought they were so
New
cool.
Death is so funny. I had a hard time understanding
and...
a lot of his dialogue when I first watched the episode, but now that
Same.
with subtitles and stuff, like he's freaking hilarious. His delivery
He's so
is
funny,
awesome.
and his scythe animation is so cool. I don't know why, but just every like shot with his scythe, I'm like, ooh.
Okay, so two fun facts about New Death. First, most of his scenes were done by Iggy Craig, who is also the very expressive person who did the anime faces in Obsidian, which didn't fit, and the very fun thin faces in this episode, which did fit. So he's a brilliant animator, and he loved writing New Death. He absolutely loved he called him a man-child as well. That's great. And the second fact is that his voice actor said he was originally drinking energy drink for the episode, but they changed it to boba tea in the final episode, probably because energy drink is not for underage people anymore. So,
What, he was drinking boba tea? I always assumed it was energy drink.
It's boba tea.
I mean, didn't it have like a lightning bolt on it or something? Like,
didn't he say at the end, I'm all hopped up on like energy juice or something?
well, also, I didn't know that he was drinking boba tea, but like he did. Someone said, maybe it was Finn. Someone said something about boba in the episode. They were like,
"Oh no!" He said, "I really liked that line." He said they're sucking out all their juicy mind boba when he was talking about the parasites. I loved that line. It was so funny.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Also, Chris Fleming, voice of New Death, is cool. He's an internet comedian.
So I guess on the topic of funny things, like if you take away all the emotional stuff and how important this episode was, like for lore and everything, like as a standalone, just like funny episode, it was so good. Oh my god. The entire thing was so funny and so creative, but just like, it was such a perfect mix.
Like,
I loved it.
I was definitely paying more attention to the dialogue on our rewatch here than my previous only 2 watches of this. And it's like, it hits me again, like how these Adventure Time writers like created their own dialect, and it's so natural. Even though it's so freaking weird. Like how do we understand what they're saying? They say the stupidest things, but it just always makes sense, and it always feels natural. Even if it's a tense moment or a sad moment, and they're saying like, "Oh, that's a sloppy goppy," and we're like, "Yeah, Finn, that's a sloppy goppy, bro." Like.
I think that's just good writing, because it's like they're all kind of like metaphors, I guess. They talk in like, I don't know, like sucking out their juicy mind bobas. Like we know exactly what that means. It's just a really funny way to word it, but it's like written so well that we're like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
Obsidian had like no slang, and we complained about it. So like maybe the writers subconsciously thought, "Oh, bugger, there's no slang." So they filled every line in Together Again with Adventure Time slang, and it was beautiful. Okay,
Tiffany is a character. You know what's funny? When we first saw the trailer, I thought that banana guard with the hair was going to be the new character, like the new main side character. But like, it being Tiffany, like, Tiffany's role in the episode was just so, like, every single line he said was so funny, and just and his emotional connection to Jake and Finn, just like it works so well, and I was so happy with how well they wrote him in, you know.
When was Tiffany's last appearance in the show?
In the finale, actually.
Well, technically,
people forget
yes.
this. They were like,
I did
they were
definitely
like,
forget that.
Well, people said, "Oh, I guess he died in the explosion with Dr. Gross," but in the final finale, like montage, he was shown for a second with robo parts.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, so he lived," but also, I guess he died eventually.
Eventually,
it was kind of funny. Like he eventually died, but he reverted back to his younger self, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, what do you think of the ending of Tiffany? Because I thought it was They wanted Tiffany in the show to be quite an open character. Like we saw him in the finale. He was a complete cyborg. Obviously, Dr. Gross might have survived as well, etc.
Oh, I think she definitely did. I think that's the implication. That's why he's a cyborg. It's because of Dr. Gross.
It seems like this episode, either Tiffany went through a reversion after he died, like Finn did, because obviously Finn was going to feel like a child again looking for Jake after being an old man, or Tiffany never really got over his blood brother rivalry with Finn, and maybe he died young as well. So that's something that's possible, and he never really got to live his best life. So for him, being dead is another chance at starting a new beginning. And I did find it weird when he turned into a toddler. I was like, oh, okay, fine, I guess he's Finn's brother. But as Finn and Jake move on to the next life, Tiffany is just starting his, and Joshua and Margaret are losing their two sons. But you know, they can start with Tiffany, and it just feels like everyone is gaining a purpose in the afterlife, even though they're no longer alive. And it's just really nice to think that you can keep growing even after you've already died.
I was gonna say I thought like maybe it's because I'm not so emotionally attached to Tiffany that I'd be like, what the heck? But like his ending was so funny, but also like it made sense, and I was like, I'm fine with this. Like I wasn't angry about that.
Yeah, I don't really have like I feel like I don't have any particular emotional investment in Tiffany. I mean, I forgot when he last showed up in the show, so like whatever they did with them here, I don't really have a feeling on whether it felt whatever for his character, but I don't know, it matched the plot of the episode, and it was funny, and it was cool seeing him again. And
one of the things, it just works. He's always been pretty funny, but he's never been like one of my favorites. But this special, like, he was so good. Like, if he acted that way in the show, I would be like, please give me more Tiffany episodes. I love that character. Like, you know, he did always act like that, but like I feel like that was like the best. I never enjoyed Tiffany as a character as much as I did in the special. It was so good.
Yeah. On the note of you know, people can still change and like grow after they've died. I just want to mention that even though this wasn't dwelled on or the point at all, I do like how at the end they got like everyone out of Dead World #1. Because, like, even people except Wyatt, which is funny. But, like, even people who might have, you know, gone there originally, too, they were just like, no one deserves to be here. Let's just get them all out. Like, the thing of, you know, infinite punishment for finite life choices, I think. Yeah, like...
Oh, my God.
It's fun. It's good. Just put them in a different one.
Do you know, before we just accept that, like, I'm glad Marjorie got to have a hypoallergenic Pinot. That was great, but... Do you know that some characters are in the wars of Dead World #1? That like the characters integrated into the wars. Ricardio is in the war.
I didn't see that.
Ricardio's in the war. As is the emissary from beyond. As is a cat for some reason. I can't remember which cat.
It's you.
It's me. I don't want to be in Dead World #1. That's terrible, Nick. What the heck? But yeah, some of the worst characters in the show, like Ricardo and the emissary, they're in Dead World #1. They're stuck in the war. They're still there at the end, as far as I can tell. So, and Wyatt's going to be joining them soon enough.
But it's a Ricardio. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was gonna say we haven't mentioned Mr. Fox. He was absolutely brilliant in this. I already loved him. Like, he's so funny, but like the way they took him and the way they used him, I could not believe how good it was. He was so funny. Oh my god. But also so sweet. Like, I don't know, they really did a good job with him. And like, him becoming New Death, I'm like, oh my god, that's like, so cute.
Mr. Fox being New Death is like, I never would have seen that coming, but it makes perfect sense. Like, what else could they have done?
And that was the thing, there was a point when I was watching, I was like, is Jake gonna become New Death? Like, you know, wouldn't have been the worst ending, I guess, because Jake is so at peace with death, and he's such a good dude that he might have been a good candidate. But just like it being Mr. Fox, and Mr. Fox just be like, oh, okay, that's cool, and he gets this pillow, and I'm like, this is so good, and it's so Adventure Time. It's just, oh, I love it. He's so funny.
It's like
his voice.
It's like the opposite of the Lich turning into a baby.
Yeah. Who voices Mr. Fox again? One of the crew members? Is it
Tom Herpick? Yeah, Tom
Yeah.
Herpick's very casual. Like, Mr. Fox was depressed for his entire life. Like, that was his entire character, being kind of depressed. And to see him in the afterlife finally reach some kind of peace as New Death and finding the purpose in his life. With Tom Herpick's very relaxed and funny voice acting, Tom being a very key storyboarder and writer in the main series, it just felt so familiar to me. Like, that is a big comfort from the episode, Mr. Fox, and grounded me very much when I was still panicking about Finn being dead. So I loved it.
I will never forget his line in Jake the Dad where it's like, eating babies, how we never did that? He's like, I don't know, but I think I'm going to go eat one right now.
Yeah.
It's the funniest line in anything.
Wow, almost got me in my both
Right in my
eyes.
both eyes. Yeah.
It's so good. But yeah, and life, God, I know we're just jumping around
That's
so
fine.
much, but
It's that episode, Janice.
life we had only seen
In the shorts.
in the frog season short, and we're like, she's so cool, but like she was so cool in this too. Like, oh my god, just like when she got angry and all the stakes came out, and her voice, and also oh my god, I had such love in my heart during this when two ghosts came down and she said oh, they're a pair, and I'm like, that's how Finn and Jake reincarnate. But like, also, like, I hope I'm something cool this time. And then he's like, a bug.
Yeah.
He's like, what is he like? He's a bug, and he's like, I don't get what I expected. And then she's like, enjoy your gift. He's like, I won't. It's so funny.
That's so funny.
It's so funny. But she's so cool, and I think they showed just enough of her. Like, I was really happy to see her, and man.
I do think they showed the perfect amount of life in this episode, because it's like really cool to get to see her like be a real character in an actual episode, not just shorts. But then also she didn't take up too much time. It's like,
how about the integration of the Lich in the episode?
Yeah.
I loved life, because I loved how, like, she was obviously maternal towards the life she was creating, but she also didn't really care about how upset it was for being put into bugs, and the music that played during that scene, when someone started uploading music from the app with the voices cut out, that was the first track we looked for. And I love how she doesn't really care about her son, even though she's the goddess of all life. She does feel very much like a god figure in the Adventure Time world, probably the most normal godlike figure in the entire series, and I find it very refreshing. That entire scene is just so comforting. I say comforting all the time. I just loved it so much. She's a great character.
Yeah.
The Lich.
But
The Lich.
The Lich.
Well, I think the Lich is freaking awesome, and he was awesome here. He always is. I just wish he had a little more time, and I wish he was foreshadowed a little bit more, because it's not obvious enough, I think. Like when I first watched the episode, because like I said, when I first watched the episode, I couldn't really understand what New Death was saying a lot of the time. So at the end, when the Lich showed up, I was literally just like, oh. Of course the Lich has to be there. It's the last episode of Adventure Time, but it was also like, oh, how was I supposed to know that?
Yeah, because New Death mentioned, my new best friend a few times in the episode, but the first time I watched it, I didn't notice any of that. Like, it all went over my head.
Neither did I. I was gonna say that.
He kisses his hand at the start too, so it's implied, but there could be one or two more instances of implied.
Yeah, and also when in the flashback scene, which is the first time we hear the Lich's voice, right? When he says "strike," strike now. I wasn't thinking about the Lich at all. I was thinking, wait, did Death say that? Like, why would he say that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, New Death's castle is a hand.
You see the hand in the top left corner during that flashback too. But I knew from the voice that it was the Lich from that scene. But that was when I was like, oh, the Lich is suddenly involved?
When I initially watched it, I was like, oh no, is this kind of shoehorned in? I kind of felt like it was. And then especially because the last few Lich things were just like, hello, it is me, the Lich, and then immediately got defeated, with the Sweet Pea stuff and everything. But I will say, as I've rewatched it and processed the episode, I really liked his role in it. I like the idea that he literally takes over New Death to actually like stop the cycle of reincarnation. I think that's a very Lichy thing to do.
I know, it's so
I think that's
perfect
really
because,
cool,
like, if he,
you know?
if he didn't do that, he never could have accomplished his goal of extinguishing all life, right? Because it would have just come back somehow.
Yeah, and as usual, they always kill it with this, like, the Lich, his lines just burn. Like, he just does one-word lines, and they're all, like, Ron Perlman, man, oh my god. But, like, it was such a cool, like, that final scene was just so awesome. When, like, you know, the Lich is obviously sitting there about to extinguish all life. He's getting out of that spell, and Finn and Jake are like, one of us has to stop this guy. Like, one of us has to forever be New Death, and they fight each other because they love each other so much.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, this whole scene is so
The
good.
animation,
And that's the
super
stakes.
good.
That's the
I
stakes.
saw a little blue Jake in there.
That's the stakes, ultimately, that scene. It's not, oh no, it's the Lich, he's going to destroy life. It's, well, we can stop the Lich right away, but to do that, one of us is going to have to not move on to the next stage of our afterlife, and one of us is going to have to make a massive sacrifice. So Finn and Jake are trying to stop each other from making that sacrifice, and they express their own feelings about each other, and that's the heart of that scene. Whereas the Lich is more to do with Finn's circuitous, immortal battle with the Lich across various lifetimes, various time periods, and it's homage to that one. Of course the Lich is dead, and of course they fight in the afterlife. It's like, obviously, but that's what the battle is about. It's about Finn and Jake and the Lich being the threat they have to stop, not the important part.
Yes, like,
Which is why I was initially like, wait, I loved that he was there. Just kidding, not shoehorned.
yeah, like, I think the Lich was actually, in terms of the time he was actually present and, like, active, or not that active, because he was just mostly just frozen, but, I think it was, that also was basically the perfect amount of time for him, because I would not have wanted anything like the Lich being the main bad guy of the special or anything like that, but I completely agree with Nick about, I wish it had been just a little more clear, the foreshadowing that was there. I wish I had understood it,
Yeah.
Do you think foreshadowing it too much would have made that moment less surprising, though? Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Like, I do get it. There's a difference between, like, surprising and jarring, and I feel like you guys say it's a little jarring.
That is it. Like, I think it should have been a little less surprising, because when I saw it, the first time I was like, wait, is this just coming out of nowhere? It wasn't. It's just that I didn't pick up on the clues.
Yeah.
If his hand twitched or something, like prior to the scene, like if his hand started twitching, that might have been an indicator of what was going on.
Yeah. But also too, in that scene where it gives us that like very brief little flash at all the Lich's different forms, like I would call that another fan service sort of moment. But that's so cool. Like that just adds to it so much. It like being a longtime fan and being able to see like a flashback like that illustrated in that sort of interesting way is so cool. Because it's both like a reminder if you like forgot what the hell happened to the Lich because he's shown up like 80 different times, but it's also just like a cool thing to look at.
Yeah. Ariko mentioned that scene was so difficult to put together. Even she had to make drawings for it. But they were so proud of it when it actually came out okay, because they thought it was going to look like a mess, but then it ended up as brilliant as it was. They were very happy with it.
Okay, what haven't we talked about yet in the episode?
The theme of reincarnation.
I mean, we've always known that was a thing in the show. I mean, I was really happy to see it explored, and seeing life again, and the like the pottery, like the way she did it was very interesting, and but that I was really, like I said, I was really happy when she said, "Oh, these two are a pair," because some souls are just meant to be with each other, and she doesn't really have a say in that. It seems it just happens, and she just goes with it. It's really nice.
Finn and Jake, like I think I said this earlier. Finn and Jake Jake's being Finn's older brother across Finn's entire life. Even when Jake was dead, he was still Finn's older brother, and even in their past life, Jake looked out for Finn, and in their future life, Jake is going to continue watching Finn grow and be invested in his growth. Even though Finn's a dead old man, Jake is interested in Finn's continuous growth, spiritual growth, until Finn is ready to ascend to the 50th Dead World. And oh god, my leg is really numb right now. So that's what I found beautiful. The idea that people continuously grow even after they reincarnate into completely new people with fresh memories. It's just continuous until they reach their final state.
So did they reincarnate to Shermie and Beth at this moment, or was that?
No way.
I doubt it.
No.
I doubt it.
Because everybody.
And I love the
said,
idea that they didn't. It just means that the cycle continues.
Yeah.
For forever.
Yeah.
You know.
But definitely because like Shermie and Beth is the only future version of them that we've seen. That's like what everybody seems to do, like when they have fan art of this moment and stuff. But it's like that would be further in the future. Lore, okay. Get with the lore, people. Come on.
If you want to read the comics, there's like a future version of Finn, Penny, and like and her rainbow tiger.
Pog.
Cute. I also don't consider them canon.
No,
so.
but that's one thing. That's one possibility.
I was gonna ask, how do you think it differentiates a soul that, like, the souls are showing up and being reincarnated? Like, how do they get to that point where like, how come some people are stuck in a dead world and some people are reincarnating? Like, what's the difference? You know what I mean?
Finn was offered the choice to go to the dead world he was told to go to, or to reincarnate, and Finn chose to reincarnate.
Yeah, it's a choice. I think
he was offered a choice. Did I totally miss that part?
Yeah, so Mr. Fox was like, you get to go to Dead World 37, which is the same Dead World Jake went to in the episode Sons of Mars, by the way, Dead World 37. Right. And Finn went, about that, Mr. Fox, I want to go back. So instead of going to 37, he went back to the rendezvous. Oh, someone suggested that Dead World 37 is literally the reincarnation, but I think everyone gets a choice whether they can stick with their current dead world or reincarnate. And Joshua and Margaret had the same choice. Like, Finn was like,
but why would any of the people stuck in one? Do you think Dead World 1 doesn't get a choice because they're just bad? Like, what do you think about that?
I think they just are so stuck with being. I think they like being bad. That they're so entrenched in being themselves that they won't even choose to reincarnate. They'd rather rot. And
they don't really.
Themselves.
Maybe they don't even realize how bad Dead World 1 is until they go. They're like, oh, I'll be the cool ruler of Dead World 1, and they just get stuck in muck for the rest of their life.
I think there was some awesome lore by Michael DeForge that said that their souls are getting, I don't know, like refreshed or something when they're stuck in there, something like that.
You really think Wyatt would reincarnate? He'd be like, I'm Wyatt. I'll always be Wyatt.
Exactly.
I think it's also interesting that obviously Dead World 1 is the worst. Dead World 50 is kind of like not that great either. Like, it's like paradise on paper sort of thing. But when you go there, or when you stay there for a while at least, you're not even really like a person anymore. It's like you're just a soul.
It's the same thing as Dead World number 1.
Bruh.
It is, you're right, because they become part of the landscape in both.
But that's the growth, isn't it, that everyone goes through? Like, Tree Trunks in Dead World 30, it's not even like a higher Dead World, but she's in literal stereotypical heaven. Joshua and Margaret in Dead World 45, it's some weird dimension thing, but they're happy with their family. And then Jake in Dead World 50 doesn't mind if he's in Dead World 1, because the heaven to him is his state of mind. It's nirvana. It's literal nirvana. And the people in Dead World 1 are experiencing the state of void without that inner nirvana, which is why it's hell for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're like almost bitter about the fact that they're dead in Dead World 1. That it's torture for them to have to be stuck being dead. But when you're Jake and you're like, you almost for a very long portion of your life, you're accepted the fact that, like, all right, I've had my kids, I have my brother, I'm gonna pass away one of these days, so I'll just let it happen when it does. And then when it does, he's like, well, it happened, here I go to Nirvana. Like,
yeah, like, do you think Jake went instantly to the 50th Dead World? I don't think so. I think he probably, like, hung around, with their parents for a while, and then he just, like, he's just relaxing, because it's like, yeah, I've been expecting this, and now it's here. I can just do whatever, and then
it's funny.
So much that eventually it just 50th.
I like the idea that he went right to 50, just because how he is and how peaceful he was with death, and just when it happened, they were just like, yeah, you got this, man. You're going to 50.
Yeah, because it's like we don't know how him or Finn ended up dying anyways, but in my head anyways, I kind of have this picture that Jake would have just died from old age or like whatever. He would have like died slowly in bed with everybody. He didn't like I feel like Finn probably could have gone and just killed off randomly on a quest or something, but I think Jake was sick or something, and like because of that he was like he had a long time to sit there and like be ready to go.
He falls over like in the Steve Wolf had. He just keels over and dies.
I have a complaint.
What?
Big complaint.
What?
In Dungeon Train, an episode I love dearly, there was a future crystal, and it showed that Jake stayed with Finn all the way to old age. And Finn was really old in that, and so is Jake. And I was like, oh, maybe magic dog years makes it so he'll die of old age at the same time as Finn. But apparently not. What the heck?
Well, then there you go. That's our here's our headcanon now then. Because if they were stuck on that train forever, they could see that in the future because there was no variable to kill them. But in reality, Jake got sick or something and died that way. Right?
I guess.
Like he could have.
So you're saying he could have lived old?
Yeah, he could have lived longer on the train because nothing would have happened. But he did. They left.
Honestly,
maybe the train was wrong. Maybe the train was just like a projected future from their minds. It wasn't really the future.
I love the idea that the train was correct, though. So I do not accept your headcanon. But I mean, it's not. I mean, you're not wrong. Like even like back in like the Pods episode when that giant ice cream pod came out and Jake just licks it, and Finn's like, "Don't just lick stuff." I'm like, Jake probably just licked poison eventually. You know what I mean? He doesn't care.
He ate the 50 flavored ice cream and just died.
Well, there's also...
He didn't sprinkle dirt in it and his mind couldn't comprehend it.
I like the idea that, maybe Jake would have lived forever on the train because the train's designed to keep you stuck in it and to keep you dungeon crawling. Maybe it has potions of extend life or something. But, like, staying there wouldn't really be living. So, like, of course Jake would take having a shorter life, but having a full life. And also for that same reason... I think it would be kind of sad if he died and went straight to 50, because as we were just talking about, you don't even really get to have your afterlife there.
He's fine. He's in nirvana. I mean, he doesn't mind because he's let go of all desire. That's the point.
I mean, of
nirvana.
Course he wouldn't. That's true. But like, I think it'd be sad still for me.
I think it matches very much what Jake wanted out of his death. Because I was wondering how they're going to address this. Like, they have the dead worlds, but also Jake wants his mind to be scattered across the universe, and this is a very good compromise and a very good addressing of Jake's desired afterlife, and how he decided to be reincarnated, and that this isn't a bad thing for him, like it might have been if you'd watched the series, and didn't fit and was wondering, what's Jake's spiritual I didn't expect him to ever cover the character's spiritual future, but there we are. But I think Jake would be happy with Nirvana, but he's decided he's happier with Finn. Not that Nirvana's bad, it's just that being alive is what made Jake reach that state, and he loves being alive, so he's happy to do it again. He carries it with him.
I guess I'm just thinking about, like, I really liked the line where Jake said, I forget exactly, but, he said, I would have been the dumb man if I just sat around doing nothing while there's a bad guy messing stuff up. Like,
I like that line, too, a lot. Their little smile towards each other.
So that's kind of why I feel like maybe if he went straight to 50, he would have had some, like, regrets. I mean, he wouldn't, because he wouldn't have been thinking about them, but, there's stuff he could have been doing that, like, he wouldn't.
I mean, maybe that's the thing, is, like, that's the, Finn's like, come on, Jake, it's time to go, and Jake's like, nah, I'm cool here, but maybe they're both a little wrong. Like, Jake being at peace forever is really nice, but also, like, he could be out doing something else, and he needs Finn to show him that, and Finn needs Jake to show him, like, just chill out, man. Like, they're like a nice little balance between the two, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they're both like heroes, like, they got that hero instinct. It's like, Jake was in the 50th Dead World and he had no way of knowing that stuff was going on, but then he did, and he said that line, like, I would have been the dum-dum or whatever if there was injustice going on and I didn't help. And it, like, maybe that kind of ended up being why he wanted to go with Finn and reincarnate too, because he was like, isn't it just awesome to just help people forever? Like, maybe I should be doing that instead of being alone, because like that's as fulfilling as being in Nirvana was.
You're right though, because if you remember all the other times that Finn nearly lost Jake or lost Jake wanted to ascend in the New Frontier, the episode that started this all, but Finn grounded him and gave him a reason to stay, and then in Elements Jake let his mind go adrift and Finn tried to pull him back and eventually managed to save him. And when in Is That You, Jake goes to bed and it's up to Finn to save him from his eternal Prismo dream. So Finn keeps Jake grounded in reality, and this episode shows that, and Jake's even grateful to be brought back to reality, even if it takes him away from his happiness. He's with his brother and he gets to do what he thinks is actually important, which he might not do if left to his own devices, because Jake can very much be pulled into his own influences and daydream a lot.
I wasn't even thinking about all the times that Finn had to save him, but that's like, yeah, that's an insane connection that you just made.
It's a good episode.
You know, and Jake did, like, need something to, like, ground him, to bring him back. Because you notice all the other, like, 50s who were drifting down to Dead World 1, they just stayed that way. They didn't have any bait to lure them, like the gum.
But I don't think they were unhappy. I think it's just...
Yeah.
Jake also has other important things to think about. Any other major thoughts on this episode?
God, I mean, it's going to be so hard to remember, but, like, the jokes, did we want to talk about the jokes?
Good.
I'm in a completely opposite mindset from Tulip right now. I'm trying to think of final remarks, and I'm, like, already getting emotional, and you're like, how about some jokes?
Yeah, funny jokes. Bone spell.
My name's
That's
Shoko. Oh, so funny. It had to be funny so that we could process it and take it one bite at a time. It's definitely the funniest. I mean, Obsidian got really funny at the end after all the heavy stuff. This episode was hilarious all the way through, just so that we could emotionally cope with the dark subject.
And that's what I think is so cool about it, is that, like, I'm only ever really emotional about this when I, like, sit back and think about it. But when you're watching it, you're just like, oh, this is, like, cool Adventure Time adventure. This is nice lore. This is such a cool location. That oh, sad, Finn and Jake are gonna separate. Oh no, they're together. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, this is such a fun Adventure Time episode. And then you sit back and you're like, oh, wait a second, they were all fucking dead, like, the whole time. Like, it's just such a good delivery of something that, like, they could have done it any way they wanted. If they went and made this sort of, like, overtly emo and overtly sappy, we still would have ate it up. But they didn't want to do that, and we still ate it up. Like, it's more interesting this way, because that's what Adventure Time has always done, and it's just so different from other things. Like, when has Adventure Time really ever... I think Obsidian is the closest we got, like, and maybe Simon Marcy kind of, like, Adventure Time really never goes all in to have, like, a big emotional, like, you need to cry here type of moment, because they don't want to.
Even Obsidian was like, "It's me, Glass Boy,"
yeah.
and
I think I Remember
beautiful.
You is probably the most emotional and nothing else like moment in the show that I can think of.
Yeah, but that's
so
because
good.
Rebecca Sugar wrote that, and every single episode of Steven Universe is a "you need to cry here" type of episode.
Yeah, but I Remember You is the best 11 minutes that Rebecca Sugar has ever written, especially
True.
with the whole instrument, the synthetic, broken, by the way, instrument that she manually broke to make it sound correct and warped enough in the episode. It was that episode is a work of art, one of the best episodes in the series, and the best thing Rebecca Sugar has ever worked on. It's so good, and I like Steven Universe, but it's so good.
Yeah, and I don't mean that to flame Steven Universe. It's just that's kind of the perfect comparison, where it's like Steven Universe delivers, it's totally its own thing, especially compared to Adventure Time, and it delivers great messages and stuff, but it's always written in a way to be, like, very overtly sappy, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way they write.
Yeah,
Every episode Stephen cried, and then things got better. Adventure Time, they chose not to do that. Like, they very rarely did that. And this one episode, where it seems like it would make so much sense to do that, because this is the finale, this is where you'd want fans to be super sad, they barely did it.
they show the characters acting like emotional enough for it to be compelling, and like Finn especially was very emotional at some points, but they don't force you to feel sad. They let you deal with the emotions in your own way. And I was complaining about this about Owl House like 3 days ago, and I said they really want you to make you feel sad and feel for the characters at points when it just doesn't sell. But Adventure Time lets you interpret things your way, and that's what makes the show so special and so good. It has that ambiguity, and it respects the audience as a viewer.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that a show that does a different thing, like I'm still gonna cry at Steven Universe. Sometimes it's freaking sad. I'm still gonna cry at sappy romance anime. It's freaking sad, but it's just refreshing to see something that's different than that. The way Adventure Time does it.
You know, they've always tried to be unique, and they've always been unique and really, really special, and I'm really happy they never lost that, and they never decided like, oh, maybe we should, I don't know if cater is the right word, but they always stood their ground. They're like, this is what we want to be and the stories we want to tell, and this is how we want to tell them, and it's so amazing.
That's what my one note that I wrote down today was Adventure Time's version of fan service was killing off all the characters and making an episode about a gay couple, and like that's the only fan service Adventure Time's ever really given us.
They're both so good though. They're both so good.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's like that isn't even fan service. It's like this is what it should have been like 10 years ago, and. But I'm not going to go into that because I absolutely gushed about that last time. But I love how much respect this episode pays to Penn Ward's era of the show as well. It very much feels like it could have been from after season 2, but it has the respect and grown-up characters of season 10, and it's just so good.
So this whole time I've also been trying to remember jokes that I liked, because I forget everything instantly. But one that like really hit me this time because I like didn't notice it before. I think it's because the subtitles helped out. But Tiffany calling Jermaine worst Jake.
I hadn't noticed that either on any of the other watches. I thought that was so funny. Just that whole joke in general, like hat Jake, and I'm like, that's literally what the parents are. It's Jake's model sheet with a hat on. It's so funny. I don't know. Do you guys want to do closing remarks?
I don't know. I think for all my closing remarks, I'm gonna say like great episode. Of course, it's not my favorite Distant Lands though. I gotta say, like it's just
You're crazy. You're crazy.
No,
Sorry.
like what? Like I was thinking of, I was going to actually, like, I had this on my list of comparing it to Obsidian and what we found better in Obsidian and better in this one. So what? Just before, I know we're closing off, but do you have any more to say on that, Stuart?
Just that it's so like heavy, and of course it is because it has to carry all the weight of being the finale of the show, or at least the finale of Finn and Jake, because there's Wizard City coming. Like I'd prefer something, to go back and rewatch and enjoy again, I guess, or just to remember fondly this sort of thing, more like what BMO and Obsidian are, where it's just like an adventure. It's from a different time period, and that's really interesting. But like, it's pretty much just an extended episode of the show, but like also with all the differences, the different writers and new ideas and all the stuff that is also present in this. But just because it's so big and important, I'm like, I want to go back to the one that's just a little less important.
Yeah.
Also, BMO wasn't in this episode, so we're not valid.
No BMO with the gun in this episode. But Tulip, what you're saying there reminds me a bit of my thoughts on Infinity Train, because I'm like, I think Infinity Train Season 3 is the best one, but I also think that it's like so overtly like off-puttingly dark and stuff sometimes that like I kind of don't ever want to watch it again. Like
I definitely do.
And it's kind of that's kind of the way. I mean, this episode isn't overtly dark unless you're really thinking about it, but it's like like this is a heavy thing to want to consider rewatching and stuff. But I don't know. I think I would say that it's my favorite and the best of what we got in, but I still think the other two are freaking fantastic.
It's the best one, definitely. It's the highest quality episode, but Obsidian has like a lot more of the stuff that you want to think about when you're thinking of the ending of the show. Like, I quote Obsidian all the time. Like, I love it dearly. It's so funny and dark and great, and I love thinking about the characters and the places they were in Obsidian, especially Finn and his little camper van. So it's more of a comfort episode, especially during the pandemic, whereas this one is a bit less relevant to Come Along With Me at the ending of Adventure Time than Obsidian was, because we're missing out Finn's entire adulthood, and this is the ending of their souls, this is their spiritual ending, but there's so much missing that it's kind of hard at times to connect it to the ending of the show thematically. It's a big jump, so it feels a bit more abstract. So I can kind of understand what the feeling that Obsidian is more relevant to the ending, as it was, whereas this one is one that you'd think about, and it's absolutely beautiful. But like episodes like Hall of Egress, it's not really one that you'd go, yes, this is the character defining episode of the series or anything like that. John, you there?
Mm-hmm.
You alive? You surviving?
I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say. I don't know when it's appropriate to say it.
You can say it now.
It's a closing remark. Are we ready for those?
Sure.
I think so.
Feel free to edit in an emotional credit, what is it, Together Again Forever music over this, because I've been thinking about this for a long time.
Oh, I definitely am.
If I'm being honest, I've been dreading this review. Part of the reason why we haven't done it for so long is because I'm gonna make so many excuses, because it's such a hard thing for me to talk about, because I'm always afraid, when I'm going to go properly thank or properly convey how much it meant to me through words, what if I fail, and what if, just so many things like that, how am I going to do it? It's been so hard for me to move on since the show ended. I feel like kind of similar to Finn in the sense that I literally went and got a Jake tattoo immediately. Well, not immediately, but I went off and got a Jake tattoo because I needed that permanent reminder of how important him and the show was for me. And I sort of wanted to believe that when I got that tattoo, that was the moment that I was at peace and that I moved on, but that's just not how it works. It was so hard for me to believe that I wouldn't just eventually forget. When you lose someone or something, you think all the time, unless I'm thinking about them and showing them and engaging with them, I'm forgetting this love that I felt for someone or something that is just so important. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, but it's really scary, and I didn't want that to happen. And it's something I've always struggled with, is feeling like I've lost something that I've loved. But Finn and Jake, they've inspired me so much. They inspired me to love myself and to be happy and to love life, and I think this episode was probably exactly what I needed, because it was about love, and about love just always being with you, through yourself and who you are, and literally transcending lifetimes. And that message is so important to me, and I'm sure it's so important to other people too. But I love Adventure Time so much, and I'm so grateful that this was made, and for the show, because I feel like I'll never forget what it did for me, and the little buddy on my arm won't let me, even if I wanted to. So I'm just going to speak out to the void here and just say thank you for everything.
That was beautiful, Chan. That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. I'm oh my god, I'm still talking.
No, it's you have so much... I really admire that about you. You have so much love for the show, and you find it hard to express sometimes, but you do find the words in the end, and it's that's the impact this show has on people, and it's a very real thing. Some people look down on it and don't take it seriously, but the show helps people process so many things, and this is one of them. It's good that it means so much to people, and I have nothing else to add. You've said everything.
Yeah, it was a great episode, and I'm so glad we have more to look forward to.
Yes! Wizard City!
After all that, it does feel nice to be able to be like, and it's Wizard City time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's so annoying, like, I just did like I did like an entire speech, and I'd like to think it was emotionally honest, but I'm still like, oh, I didn't say enough. Like, I don't know when it's ever enough.
Well,
and like I said, it's
just impossible to know when it's something this like important. It's just impossible to know how you're supposed to like let that out. But I think you really do a great job of laying that out.
I mean, I really appreciate it. It's just that fear, like I was talking about, like, this love is so real, and I want people to see it. I want it to be tangible, because if it's not, then it goes away. And like I said, that's why I needed this episode as much as I did, because it's about love just staying with you, no matter what. And that's why I felt strongly about when we were talking about Finn and being like, oh, he was sad the rest of his life. Like, that's not how it works. Like, it's not a straight line. You can feel sad and you can feel longing, but you can also be happy, and you can also move on and live your best life. And I feel like, personally, with my growth because of the show, that's what's going to happen to me, and that's why I was really happy that I was able to see that in this episode. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about it.
The other 3 episodes deal with immortal characters finding peace with their lives. This episode has Finn and Jake discovering a completely different and very powerful kind of immortality of their love.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Because it's just like this show went on for so long, and it's just so fantastic that they were able to treat it the way that they have. Even if whatever, like, Come Along With Me production wise was abrupt or like whatever, like the fact that they got these specials and treated it this way and everything is just so good. And it's still it's so weird to me that, like, I was watching this show since I was 10 years old, and now I am 22, and I still think about it like every day. And it was always like on a weekly basis I was able to be like, oh, it's Monday, I get to watch Adventure Time. And then soon enough I started going on Tumblr, and I was like, oh, I get to watch Adventure Time, and then I get to see everybody's thoughts, and it's going to be awesome. And then I started going to college, and that kind of made me my I think it was more so because Cartoon Network like just sporadically released episodes of stuff that, like, I stopped feeling the same sort of attachment and, like, moved on to watching a lot of anime and stuff. But I was still always there to know when an episode was coming out. But I felt like I disconnected from the, like, community of people that were enjoying it. And I mean, a lot of those people too just disconnected because other shows and stuff came out. And then, like, but it still never stopped mattering to me. And I can remember so many vivid memories of me just watching a new episode of this show. And like what? I was sitting on a couch, but, like, I remember Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2 coming out, and it was a school night, and our Christmas tree was on next to me, and I was watching Simon's reveal and being like that moment, like, making me be like, oh, okay, I think I really like cartoons, like, a lot. And I remember in college trying to set up the cable in my dorm room to be able to watch the finale as it aired, but it didn't work because I didn't have a remote to press the menu button to set things up. So I had to wait for it to be released online and watch it a little late.
Oh,
and
ick.
and then, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just so. And then around the finale too is when I was confident enough in myself to make videos about it and stuff. And then people were like, "Oh, hey, this guy gets it." And all those people that said this guy gets it were the people that I had been looking to for years, being like, "Oh, look at the fan art they drew. That's so cool." And, like, now I'm talking to all you people in this chat and in the server and stuff, and it's just so insane how something that was just a piece of entertainment, that was a minuscule thing realistically in life, is what made me, like, do a majority of what I'm doing now and talk to the people I'm talking to now. And it's just insane, and it's sad too. Like, I don't want to bring this up because it's like a bummer thing, but, like, this Together Again came out kind of to very little fanfare, which, like, is so unfortunate because it's like the quality's there, but everybody just kind of moved away from this, and like there's a collective of us diehard people that are still here. But it felt when this episode came out, it was way more personal than usual because I wasn't really able to go online and see that many people be that excited about it. But that's just how it is.
I've been in I know some of you have been around since very early on, but I was in the fandom in 2012 when it was a big balloon full of children, very excited for the episodes. Not really anything like what cartoon fandoms are now. Don't have that intensity, but it wasn't very personal. And over time, less and less people still in the Adventure Time fandom, but you grew closer. Like after the series ended, I think I knew all of you people already. Like Tulip, we'd known each other for many years, but we'd never really interacted. And suddenly after the series has ended, we start being able to sit down and talk about it together. And Distant Lands has been such a gift for that, because it's after Obsidian really brought all these people who appreciate Adventure Time and have loved it for years, but never got to talk about it. It brought them all together, so it's been a very special experience, Distant Lands, and I hope that there are many new memories that people have made that they didn't get the opportunity to make when the series was still going. So I understand how you feel there, Nick. It's just but it's not necessarily a bad thing, because we have this personal experience, don't we? So, yeah.
And now we're all so old.
Boomers.
But this will be on HBO Max forever, and some kid someday is gonna click on it and they'll watch it in a different way. But I think all the moral values and everything that's there in the show will be able to hit other people.
Yeah.
For me, when the original show ended, I felt empty and like a piece was missing, and I feel truly like this was the piece that was missing for me, and I'm very, very grateful that I was able to have a gift like that. So, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
It's just what's weird, what's surprising to me is the fact that I can be 12 years older than I was when the show first came out, and I'm still sitting here waiting for an episode. Like that means something.
Yeah, definitely.
But then that's gonna be the last one.
Don't remind me. That's gonna be
it
the last episode. Tulip, do you have anything to add to this sobbing mess?
I don't know. I was thinking, I could talk about how the show does mean a lot to me. Probably my biggest source of inspiration for wanting to, create anything of my own. My favorite show of all time. I started watching it when it first came on, and I was a kid, and I grew up at the same rate that Finn did. I don't know. What does that mean? I'm gonna die now because Finn's dead?
No, he's left you behind. You have your whole Obsidian life ahead of you, and he's just gone to the next step.
Yeah, I, at this point I've said all my thoughts I have about the episode.
Yeah.
Big impact.
Right,
We said the review wasn't going to be 2 hours, and we were right. It's an hour and 55 minutes.
Yeah, we milked it up.
Even with 4 people, we're just that good at this, I guess. So, right. Well, thank you everyone for watching and staying with us for this incredible episode. I hope you've seen Together again, and if you have seen it, watch it again.
It's a little too late.
Imagine if someone hasn't seen it ever this far into the podcast.
And we are really looking forward to Wizard City, which we think might be the last Distant Lands episode. So we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, see you
Thanks
later.
for tuning in. Goodbye.
Wonder what life's gonna turn me into this time. Jake? What are you doing? I just had my donkey epiphany.
I know. I'm just coming back for fun. Because it's great being alive with you.
Good reason.